In the spring of 2019, 15-year-old Riley Crossman disappeared from Morgan County, West Virginia. Initially, her family and friends remained hopeful, convinced she would return soon. However, their worst fears were confirmed just 8 days later when her body was discovered in a trash bag along a highway. The case took a grim twist as the investigation pointed to her stepfather, Andy McCauley, as the primary suspect. McCauley had been living with Riley's mother at the time. Riley Crossman was born on December 22, 2003, in Martinsburg, West Virginia, a small family-friendly town with a population of about 20,000. Known for its serene landscapes and peaceful atmosphere, Martinsburg provided a close-knit environment where Riley grew up in a loving family. She was especially close to her younger sister Jade and her older brothers Ryder and Parker, often stepping into the role of a protective older sibling. Riley was described by those who knew her as caring, dependable, and always there for her family. Despite a happy childhood, Riley faced challenges after her parents' divorce, which was a difficult transition for the family. While they continued visiting their father in Martinsburg, Riley and her siblings primarily lived with their mother, Chantel, in nearby Berkeley Springs, about 25 miles, 40 kilometers away. Over time, Chantel began a relationship with Andy McCauley, who later moved in with the family. This new dynamic brought changes, but Riley remained close to her siblings and friends. She was known for being creative, reliable, and occasionally stubborn, with a promising future ahead, until her life was tragically cut short. Riley was a bright, driven teenager who excelled academically and socially. A standout student at Berkeley Springs High School, she was admired by teachers and classmates for her intelligence, responsibility, and strong work ethic. Her curiosity about the world fueled her academic success, and she often expressed her creativity through art and writing. Despite her impressive achievements, Riley was humble and grounded, always putting others first and offering support when needed. Socially, Riley was well loved for her kindness and warmth. She had a close-knit group of friends who appreciated her loyalty, humor, and caring nature. Weekends often found her attending school events, spending time with friends, and making cherished memories. Riley also found happiness in her relationship with her boyfriend, Hayden Lacey, whom she met at Berkeley Springs High School. Their connection was instant, and they quickly became inseparable. Friends often remarked on how perfect they were together, embodying the joy and excitement of young love. Hayden became a significant part of Riley's life, and their relationship evolved into something deeply meaningful for both of them. Their bond went beyond school dances and casual dates, as they spent countless hours talking on the phone, texting, and video chatting to stay connected even when apart. Meeting each other's families further underscored the closeness they shared. For Riley, the relationship was a source of happiness and emotional support, offering her love and a sense of belonging. Friends and family could see how much Hayden cared for her, and it was evident that their connection was rare for teenagers their age. As Riley neared the end of her sophomore year, her life appeared full of promise and joy. She had a supportive group of friends, a loving family, and a boyfriend who cherished her. Everything seemed to point toward a bright future, whether it was her academic goals or the adventures she shared with Hayden. Yet beneath this seemingly perfect life, unseen shadows loomed. The strong-willed, creative, and caring girl her loved ones knew was on the verge of a tragedy that no one could have anticipated. Despite her outward happiness, Riley's life was about to take a dark and irreversible turn that would devastate her family and community. On May 7, 2019, Riley Crossman's day began like any other. The warm weather hinted at summer's approach, and Riley followed her usual routine at Berkeley Springs High School. There were no signs of trouble as she attended classes and interacted with friends. She returned home around 3 p.m., finding her mother, Chantel, resting on the couch after working 2 jobs. Quietly going about her evening to avoid disturbing her mom, Riley spent time with her younger brothers and grandmother Debbie, who was helping around the house. When Debbie left around 7:30 p.m., Riley retreated to her bedroom. The evening seemed ordinary until things took a troubling turn. While on FaceTime with her boyfriend Hayden, an argument broke out between them. Hayden was set to go on a school trip to Washington, D.C. the next day, and Riley grew anxious about him spending time with other girls. The disagreement ended when Hayden fell asleep around 10 p.m. However, the night took a chilling twist when Riley sent Hayden 2 alarming text messages. At 11:01 p.m., she texted, "Andy's in my room. Shh, don't say anything so he can hear everything." 12 minutes later, she sent another message, "I'm scared, babe." These would be the last messages Riley would ever send. What transpired between 11:01 p.m. and the next morning remains a mystery. On May 8, 2019, Chantel noticed Riley wasn't in her bedroom when she checked around 7:15 a.m. At first, she wasn't alarmed, assuming Riley had left early to see Hayden before his school trip. It wasn't unusual for Riley to leave early when she had plans. As the family went about their day, they expected Riley to return home at her usual time, unaware that this marked the beginning of a devastating ordeal. As the afternoon stretched on and Riley failed to arrive home by her usual time of 3 p.m. or 3:30 p.m., her family's concern began to deepen. Riley was a responsible teenager who always informed her family if her plans changed or if she expected to be late. Her grandmother, Debbie, was the first to sense something was amiss when Riley didn't return from school. Chantel, her mother, started calling Riley's phone, but every call went straight to voicemail, and text messages went unanswered. This was completely unlike Riley, who was always quick to respond and rarely away from her phone. By this point, alarm bells were ringing in Chantel's mind. She realized she hadn't seen Riley since the previous evening when she assumed Riley was asleep behind her closed bedroom door. The combination of Riley's uncharacteristic silence and her absence sent the family into a state of panic. Chantel's maternal instinct told her something was seriously wrong. Riley wasn't the type of girl to disappear without a word, and the growing dread in Chantel's heart drove her to take immediate action. After a frantic search of their home and the surrounding neighborhood turned up no sign of Riley, Chantel made the agonizing decision to call 911 and report her daughter missing. When Chantel informed Riley's stepfather, Andy McCauley, of the situation, his reaction unsettled her. Though he initially claimed to be concerned, his behavior didn't reflect the urgency of the moment. He promised to search for Riley and left the house on his bicycle. However, when Chantel returned from her own search, she found Andy back at home, asleep on the couch instead of continuing the search. His indifferent and dismissive attitude only heightened Chantel's unease and raised suspicions about his involvement. As the police were notified and began their investigation, officers immediately interviewed Riley's family and close friends, hoping to uncover clues about her sudden disappearance. Both Chantel and Riley's boyfriend, Hayden, expressed deep concern and confusion over her vanishing. However, as the investigation unfolded, troubling details came to light. Friends revealed that Riley had confided in them about her discomfort around Andy McCauley. She mentioned feeling uneasy and even frightened by his presence, particularly when her mother wasn't home. These fears were eerily corroborated by the chilling final texts Riley had sent to Hayden the night before, expressing her fear of Andy being in her room. This revelation shifted the investigation in a new and troubling direction, with Andy McCauley emerging as a person of interest. Authorities intensified their focus on him as they worked to uncover the truth behind Riley's disappearance. Police quickly began to suspect that Riley's disappearance was not a case of a runaway or an accident. The growing evidence suggested she might have been harmed by someone close to her, someone she should have been able to trust. Andy McCauley, Riley's stepfather, became the primary focus of the investigation due to his odd behavior and Riley's apparent fear of him. Authorities turned their attention to digging deeper into his background and actions, determined to uncover the truth. As the investigation progressed, Andy's behavior raised more red flags. During police questioning, his statements about the night Riley disappeared were inconsistent. Initially, he claimed he had last seen Riley at home and had gone to bed early, insisting nothing unusual had occurred. However, as questioning continued, his story began to shift, and he struggled to provide a clear account of his actions that night. His claim of sleeping through the night conflicted with evidence, including phone records showing activity from his phone during the early morning hours. Further investigation into Andy's past painted a troubling picture. He had a criminal record that included charges for drug use, burglary, and assault, indicating a history of instability and violent behavior. Police also uncovered a long-standing struggle with substance abuse, which often caused Andy to act erratically under the influence. This dark history, combined with Riley's fear of him, cast a heavier shadow of suspicion. Investigators now had to piece together a timeline of his actions on the night Riley vanished, suspecting his past behavior may have tragically intersected with Riley's future. A key piece of evidence in the case was Riley's final text messages to her boyfriend, Hayden. These messages revealed her deep fear in the moments before her disappearance. At 11:01 p.m., on the night she vanished, Riley texted Hayden saying, "Andy's in my room. Shh, don't say anything, so he can hear everything." Just 12 minutes later, she sent another chilling message. "I'm scared, babe." These haunting texts strongly indicated that Riley felt threatened by Andy, further cementing him as the prime suspect. To gather more information, investigators asked Andy to take a polygraph test. While he agreed to the test voluntarily, the results were inconclusive. It was later revealed that Andy was under the influence of drugs at the time, impairing the reliability of the test. His drug use, already a significant aspect of his troubled past, added another layer of suspicion. The polygraph's inconclusive outcome prevented police from obtaining clear answers, complicating the case further. Despite this setback, Riley's final messages, combined with Andy's erratic behavior and criminal history, drove investigators to focus their efforts more intensely on him. As the investigation advanced, additional evidence emerged, implicating Andy further. A crucial breakthrough came from CCTV footage, showing Andy leaving his job site for an extended period the day after Riley went missing. This directly contradicted his claim of being at work all day. The footage captured Andy driving away in his green truck and being absent for several hours, raising even more questions about his involvement in Riley's disappearance. Andy's alibi unraveled further as more questions arose about his actions during the critical hours following Riley's disappearance. Witnesses at his job site reported unusual behavior. Andy had requested several heavy-duty trash bags, claiming he needed them for another project. When he returned to the site, hours later, he appeared disheveled. His shoes were untied, and his clothes were messy, as though he had dressed in a hurry. His boss noted that this behavior was odd and uncharacteristic, fueling further suspicion. These inconsistencies, combined with the CCTV footage and witness statements, painted a damning picture. Investigators suspected Andy had used the time away from the job site to dispose of evidence related to Riley's disappearance. As the case progressed, it became evident that Andy had lied about his actions, and his suspicious behavior deepened the mystery surrounding Riley's fate. The investigation took a tragic turn 8 days after Riley vanished, when her body was discovered in a remote area along Tuscarora Pike, wrapped in a trash bag and discarded near a highway. Her remains were heavily decomposed, complicating the medical examiner's ability to determine the exact cause of death. However, the death was ruled a homicide. The circumstances of her discovery left little doubt that foul play was involved. Forensic evidence soon began to implicate Andy McCauley. The trash bags used to conceal Riley's body matched those Andy had requested from his boss the day after her disappearance. Fibers and other materials on Riley's clothing and in the area where her body was found matched items linked to Andy's work truck and tools. One particularly incriminating find was drywall mud and screws near Riley's body, materials consistent with those Andy used at his job. Additionally, CCTV footage linked Andy's movements to locations near the crime scene, directly tying him to the area where Riley's body was discarded. With the discovery of Riley's body and mounting forensic evidence, the case against Andy grew stronger. On May 16, 2019, days after Riley's remains were found, Andy McCauley was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, along with additional charges of child abuse and concealing a body. His arrest brought some relief to Riley's grieving family, but it marked the beginning of a protracted legal battle to seek justice. The trial, delayed by various legal proceedings, began in September 2021. During the trial, the prosecution presented a chilling narrative. Andy, a man who should have been a protector, had instead committed a horrific crime. They showcased forensic evidence, CCTV footage, and witness testimonies that highlighted Andy's suspicious actions and his efforts to cover up the crime. The prosecution painted a picture of a man with a troubled past who, on the night of May 7, 2019, ended a young girl's life in a senseless act of violence. The defense attempted to cast doubt on the evidence, pointing to the absence of direct eyewitnesses and suggesting alternative explanations. However, the overwhelming circumstantial and forensic evidence left little room for doubt. Multiple forensic experts testified, linking Andy to the crime scene through trash bags, fibers, and materials found both on Riley's body and in his truck. The trial was emotionally charged, with Riley's family, particularly her father, Lance Crossman, sharing heart-wrenching testimony about the profound loss they had endured. The community followed the proceedings closely, seeking justice and closure for the tragedy that had shaken their small town. The trial neared its climactic conclusion as both the defense and prosecution prepared for the jury's verdict. Throughout the proceedings, key testimonies and forensic evidence were pivotal in building the case against Andy McCauley. One of the most compelling testimonies came from Andy's boss, who described his unusual behavior on the day after Riley's disappearance. According to the boss, Andy requested several heavy-duty trash bags, claiming they were for cleaning up a job site. However, After leaving for several hours, Andy returned disheveled, with untied shoes and messy clothes, as though he had hurriedly dressed. This odd behavior, combined with the discovery of Riley's body wrapped in similar trash bags, painted a damning picture of his involvement. Forensic experts also provided critical evidence linking Andy to the crime. They testified that fibers, drywall mud, and screws found near Riley's body matched materials from Andy's work truck and tools. This evidence directly connected him to the site where Riley's body had been dumped. Additionally, forensic analysis suggested that Riley's death was likely caused by suffocation or strangulation, though the state of decomposition made it difficult to confirm the exact cause. Experts noted several indicators of strangulation, including Riley's t-shirt bunched around her neck and evidence of a struggle, as her shorts and underwear had been manipulated. The physical evidence, Andy's inconsistent statements, and his suspicious actions following Riley's disappearance solidified the prosecution's case. Testimonies from forensic experts and Andy's boss created a clear narrative. Andy had killed Riley, wrapped her body in trash bags, and discarded her along a remote highway. The prosecution demonstrated that Andy had the means, opportunity, and motive to commit the crime, while evidence overwhelmingly suggested strangulation or suffocation as the cause of death. As the trial reached its final phase, both sides prepared for closing arguments. After weeks of emotional testimonies, forensic revelations, and witness statements, the case was handed to the jury. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as Riley's family, friends, and community members awaited the verdict. The small town, shaken by the tragedy, focused on this pivotal moment. When the jury returned, they found Andy McCauley guilty of first-degree murder, confirming their belief that he had premeditated Riley's killing. The verdict was met with a wave of emotion in the courtroom, particularly from Riley's grieving family, who had endured unimaginable loss. The conviction underscored the betrayal of trust, as Andy, who should have been a protective figure in Riley's life, had instead ended it in a brutal and senseless act. The trial was not yet over, as the jury now had to decide whether to attach mercy to Andy's sentence. Under West Virginia law, a first-degree murder conviction with mercy allows the possibility of parole after 15 years. Without mercy, the sentence is life in prison with no parole. The prosecution strongly argued against granting mercy, emphasizing the calculated nature of the crime, Andy's repeated lies, and his efforts to conceal his actions. Riley's father, Lance Crossman, delivered a powerful and emotional statement, urging the jury to deny mercy. His words encapsulated the profound pain and loss Riley's family and community had endured, reinforcing the demand for justice for the 15-year-old girl whose life had been cruelly taken. Lance Crossman spoke with raw emotion about the unbearable loss of his daughter, describing Riley as a bright, loving, and innocent soul whose life was cruelly cut short. With tears streaming, he addressed the jury, asking, "Where was the mercy when he took her life? Where was the mercy when he put her in a trash bag and discarded her like garbage?" His words struck a deep chord with everyone present, underscoring the devastating impact of Riley's death on her family and community. After hearing the final arguments and heartfelt pleas, the jury deliberated on the question of mercy. Their decision came swiftly and unanimously. No mercy would be granted to Andy McCauley. This meant a life sentence without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never walk free. For Riley's family, this verdict brought a sense of relief, as they would never have to endure the possibility of his release. When the sentence was read, a palpable sense of justice filled the courtroom. Riley's loved ones found some measure of closure, knowing Andy would spend the rest of his life behind bars, paying for the horrific crime he committed. Though the pain of losing Riley would never fade, the life sentence ensured her killer would be held accountable. As the courtroom emptied, the community reflected on the tragedy that had shaken their small town. Riley's life had been stolen in the most cruel and senseless way, but her family took solace in knowing justice had been served. Andy McCauley's conviction and life sentence marked the end of a long, painful journey for her loved ones and guaranteed he would never harm anyone again. Riley Crossman's tragic story is a haunting reminder that danger can sometimes come from those we trust most. Her life was taken in the very place she should have felt safest, underscoring the importance of vigilance and awareness, even in seemingly unlikely situations. Let Riley's story encourage us to trust our instincts, ask difficult questions, and take action when something feels wrong. It is our shared responsibility to protect one another and prevent tragedies like this from recurring. Stay vigilant, stay connected with your loved ones, and always prioritize their safety.